Mike, you look good. I don't know, new understandings. You had quite a fun time last week, and I think you're the better for it.
Well,
You
guess
look
what?
more grown up.
We are live for the final Triple T Talk Time with TJ of 2025. Can
Nice.
you believe it? We are at that point again. Episode number 209 brings us
Wow.
to the end of 2025. My name is TJ Zebel. I call myself a professional problem solver, which I always follow up with, no, I don't know everything. I just have a unique way of helping people find the solutions they're looking for, asking questions, digging through resources, calling on my tribe, all the above. So, if you are out there or know somebody who's dealing with some challenges or wants to get ready for 2026, give me a jingle and see if we can't help you out. And for those of you that are out on YouTube, I get to say, "Hi, Mom," one last time of 2025. And speaking of YouTube, I would appreciate it if you guys would all take a trip to YouTube when this is over and do me a big favor and do all the YouTube stuff. Make sure that you are subscribed, that you ring the bell so you know when we're back on the air. Uh, Click the likes, make some comments, all the above. I really appreciate them. Doesn't cost you anything but a few seconds to clickety click and a little tappity tap, but it helps the channel out. And I ain't gonna lie, I like reading the comments, making sure I'm on track. You can also swing over to the website, www.thetswb.com, thetallskinnywhiteboy.com. That's what it stands for, always has, even way before the internet. So if you find anything else, that is not me. And I'm going to stick with that as well. On the website, you're going to find all sorts of little tidbits of information, some of the stuff, some of the few things of the many things I do. There is an About Me tab, and if you click on the About TJ, we're going to change that tab a little bit so it's a little easier to understand. It's kind of hidden right now, but if you click on the About TJ tab, it'll actually open up a 6-page PDF of some of the professions I've been involved in, some of my certifications, and some of the stuff that I teach. And like I said, it's only 6 pages long. So head over there and see if there's anything in there that I can help you with that you would like to learn more about, that you would be interested in. I'd love to help you in any of those areas. And I also offer a free 30-minute consultation. That's right, no charge to you, totally free, 30 minutes of my time for us to chit chat about any challenges you may have that you're up against. And if I'm a fit, I will let you know. And I also promise you, if I feel like I am not a fit, I will let you know, and I will do my best to find a person who can help you with the challenges you're up against. And please let other people know as well. If you know somebody who's going through some challenges, I'm blessed to be able to help people with depression, anxiety, phobias, PTSD, grief. I offer corporate consulting. I've got 2 of them going on right now, having some fun with those. Also big into relationships, and seeing as how January 1st is right around the corner. This would be a great time for those that are sick of being single, or they're wanting to be single, they just want to feel better about it. Or if you're dealing with other stuff, again, any of the things I listed, get a hold of me. Let's see if I can help you out. It's what I do. It's one of the things I live for. And now it's time to introduce the tie of the week, the last one of 25. Ah, yes, I figured I'd Make it a hot exit. I don't remember where I got no boundaries. Don't remember where I got this one, but it is one of my favorites. So, if you see a cool tie that is appropriate for online viewing with people, send it to me. I'll feature it. And I'd appreciate it if you would let me know that you sent it. I'm still trying to figure out who sent one of the other ties that made it here, so I can thank that person, but I appreciate it. Now we're at the point where I get to hear from you guys. Who's got something cool from the last 7 days that you can share with us? Anything cool? No news is good news. Oh, Michael's got something.
Howdy, howdy, howdy.
Hey, hey.
Happy New Year, everybody, and Happy New Year, TJ. Love the tie.
Thank you.
So I think we might have found a niche for Lunch Money Club. We're going to try an angle. I am going to reach out to any Uber or rideshare forums, because one of the biggest complaints right now rideshare folks have that they feel like they're getting screwed by their companies. They're not getting paid enough.
Yep.
And the Uber drivers can join Lunch Money Club for free as a business partner. And we'll pay them $16 every time someone signs up for $37. And if they sign up for $10 just to try it out, we'll give them $2.
Cool.
And that's an extra $2 tip or $16 tip for every ride that they see. And then they get residuals going forward as well.
There you go.
So hopefully that will fill a need.
Yeah.
And we'll go from there.
Great idea.
Thank you.
Cool. And if you're wondering what that is, you can head over to lunchmoneyclub.com. Check it out. And you don't even have to be an Uber rider if you just want to save some money in your area or another area where you're going or the next area you're going, or if you happen to know anybody that likes to save money. Check out lunchmoneyclub.com.
Exactly.
Yes.
And we love you. Thank you very much.
Great way to start the year. Who else has got something cool to share? Anybody? Anybody? Really? I guess no news is good news, hopefully. Well, if that's where we're at, if this is your first time joining us or the first time watching the recording, I'll give you a little breakdown of how it works. It's a 2-hour show. First hour, I do my best to try and make it through 3 topics that I've picked for the evening. And I say it that way, if you're part of Planet TJ, you know exactly what I mean. And then the second hour, things change up a little bit. It's open mic, open platform. Anybody on the call can bring up a topic or ask a question, and I like to have everybody on the call answer first because I like to learn as well. And after everybody's answered, if I feel I still have some stuff I could share on the topic, that's when I throw in my 2 centavos. So, if nobody else has any stuff to share, I guess we'll dive right in. The topics are version 0.26, tolerance, and legacy. So, starting it off, version 2.26, and I'm sure you guys have a little idea of what we're talking about here, seeing as how we're 2 days away from 26. But I see, and I've been guilty, I did it myself, we see the new year coming and we're all about like, oh, resolutions. Oh, yes. What's your New Year's resolution? Oh, my goodness. And we're just going to write it down. We're going to tell people that we're going to have a whole new life and all the above. And life is going to be wonderful and it'll never be the same as it was before. And like I mentioned last year, all the industries that work with those type of resolutions are amping up their advertisement to make sure that you realize it's a really good time to change your life. Hey, why don't you come on down to Bubba's Gym? You can join today. And all the gym rats who go religiously every day of the year are going, ugh, here it comes again. And I get it from both angles. I understand both angles, but if you're one of the gym rats that goes there every year, how can you help the newbies from burning out again this year? How can you gain one or maybe two or maybe five more people that will show up like you do every day?
Well, a lot of the gym rats are hoping that they do stop coming.
Yes, no, exactly. But I'm trying to change the viewpoint a little bit that if the gym rats, instead of hoping that, tolerate going, oh my gosh, I can hardly wait till they go back home, back to their comfort zone, back to eating Cheetos and Netflix,
How do we welcome them, is what you're saying.
Well, not all of them, because there are some that are, I've been at the gym.
Yep.
There were some that you just would prefer. They either build their own home gym or they just go back to Cheetos and Netflix. But I'm going to challenge those gym rats out there. Pick one, maybe two. Help them out. Give them at least a good running chance. Give them a partner. Obviously, they're not going to be at your speed right away, but not all gym rats were born popping out of the crib. Got to go to the gym. At some point, you were the newbie at the gym. And it doesn't have to be the gym. There's so many other things out there,
Yep.
and yes, you can, you guys have heard me say this many times. You don't have to wait till January 1st to make a change. But here we are again. So let's make a change and see how many resources we can find to help others with their change. Mark.
Yeah, I can remember being a gym rat, and I always noticed that the people who consider it to be like work, oh, gotta go, gotta get this mile in, and they weren't having any fun. And if you're not having fun, yeah, the larger part of your brain, the part of your brain that just wants to go play and have fun, probably not going to be in on, a workout. Could call it a play out, but I just invented that word. But I saw at the gym one time, a couple of girls, one girl I recognized, she was a gym rat. She probably dragged her friend with her. And I could tell the other girl wasn't having any fun. So I kind of went up to the other girl. I said, you know what the secret is? why she's a gym rat and you're not. I said, because look at her face. She's having fun. And if you're not having fun, you're not doing it right. So, um, yeah, I've helped a lot of people. Again, if you find the fun, you're going to keep doing it. You know, when I used to get on the elliptical bike, I could I couldn't get on the elliptical bike and be on it for 45 minutes. But when I get on the elliptical and I'm doing my thing, in my mind's eye, I had my music on and the room darkened and the disco ball, sorry, I'm old, came down from the ceiling.
Yep.
And, I could dance for 45 minutes, but I couldn't, work out on that machine for 45 minutes. So I was having fun. And when
Yeah.
you're having fun, you find access to resources that you really didn't know you had.
Yeah.
You can always have, because if you're having fun, that's what it's all about, and that's what when you'll stick with it and you'll keep coming back, in my
Great
opinion.
advice. Couldn't agree more. The other part is, everybody will have other things like, I want to quit smoking. Well, there are lots of different ways to accomplish that. And as a person who tried a number of them, including the hardest one of just cold turkey without any information, do your best to set yourself up for success. You can reach out to people in this group who do offer smoke cessation. You can uh, look for other resources like that. But I guess to keep in line with tonight's topic, I took this idea and ran it by one of my clients today, and I said, if we take it one step further, what if you were to consider it version 0.26.1, meaning January? And then you've got version 20.26.2, all the way
Mhm.
up to 20.26.12. Break it down. What changes do you want to bring forward in point one, point two, point three?
Nice.
That makes it a little more digestible. And when you think about it as software upgrades, which basically what it is, you can analyze what's not working. How do we fix the bugs? How do we fix the latency? How do we delete old programs that aren't needed there? How do we clear the cache? How do we clear out the programs that are no longer needed? And especially for anybody that's dealt with computers now for any amount of time. And from this point on, anytime you see the latest upgrades, and I know some of us, yeah, guilty, you see the upgrades and you're like, ah, why? And there are some upgrades that are necessary. There are some when you look at them and it fixes like this bug crash on this program that you don't even use. Okay, so is that a worthwhile update? Not sure. But because it's us, affecting us, and not only us, but those around us, wouldn't it be worthwhile to figure out each month what type of little upgrade we could put into the system? What would it be worthwhile to upgrade? And while you're at it, you get yourself a day planner and start looking at it that way. Start planning your updates. Look throughout the year. What usually happens here? How can I do an update? If you were late for buying Christmas presents this year, maybe 2.26.10 includes an update reminder, start shopping now. And then do the process that we'd talked about before of making sure that each month has something worth looking forward to, and that you have that year defining event planned as well. Start your planning now. Build a life that's worth experiencing and living. I remember the first time I read the quote of, don't write the same thing on 365 pages and call it a story. I've known a few people like that. And nothing against it, that was their choice. But in my mind, that's kind of a wasted life. But that's my values and criteria. There are some people that are absolutely fine with living in the exact same place, working at the exact same place, eating the same stuff. I knew a couple of them when I was bartending. I knew that I could almost set the drink down before the seat was occupied. They were that methodically predictable. They worked at the same place forever. They ate the same stuff. They drank the same stuff. They almost wore the same clothes. They were the version of Groundhog Day, but it showed up in my life with all the rest of the chaos. So, any other ahas, epiphanies, inputs on this, Michael?
One of the gals I work with talks about sales goals and talks about when you look at what your goal is for the year or the month, and if you look at it like a marathon, it's very difficult. But if you look at it like a series of small sprints, and then you just reset and reset and reset. So it's very good. I like your 12.1, 12.2, 12.3.
Yeah. And it allows you to reverse engineer the upcoming year instead of floating through it on autopilot. It used to amaze me at how these big corporations, they're planning, most of them they already have the year planned out.
Yep.
They're already planning their sales strategies for 27 and 28. They've got their promotions laid out for the year. This is what we're doing for Easter. This is going to be this year's Thanksgiving promotion, and they have to, because of the amount of processes that have to be in place to make sure that the Christmas product is ready to be delivered in late October, early November. Well, you don't start making the product in late October, early November. You got to have that product ready in March, April, May, so that you can have the packaging ready, and then the logistics to start shipping and all that stuff. And even the employees for companies like that, I'm finding are oftentimes they know how to plan everything for the business, but they forget to do the same thing for their life. So if your life was like one of those big corporations where you had to have things pre-thought out for the year, how different might your life be? If you take the time now to look at wins, losses, and all the above for 25, if you had kept good notes, where would you make changes and how far in advance would you make them for certain parts of the year? Now, we just went through Thanksgiving. If you had a chance to go back and do Thanksgiving differently, what might you change? Well, that might be a good thing to open up your day planner and put notes in to 20.26.10 for a heads up, point 11 for deployment. So again, these are all different ways to make sure that you don't live the exact same year that you just lived. B, don't make the same mistakes that you did, but decide how much better do you want 26 to be. Holly.
See if I can get myself to unmute here.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a little rambling all over the place, but a couple things that popped into my head. First of all, you were talking about businesses have to plan for their whole year, and I just went right back to a college class I was in that stuck with me forever. He says the difference between U.S. companies and Japanese companies is that Japanese companies are required to present their 99-year plan. And one of the thoughts that kind of came to my mind about that is, if you think of a plan as I have to do this exactly as I planned it, it's not going to go well.
There.
The only way it works to have a 99-year plan is if you say plans are meant to pivot. So like one of the thoughts I was thinking is, let's say you've decided to go on a vacation with your family and you're planning to go to Italy. And then, 6 months later, you decide, no, we're not going to go to Italy, we're going to go to France. Your plan wasn't a waste of time. You're still going to need passports. You're still going to need luggage. There's a lot of that planning. Just because you pivot doesn't mean it was a waste of time. And just because you pivot doesn't mean it was a failure. So obviously another thing to remember when you're going towards these plans is, there's no such thing as failure. There's only feedback. So if you make a plan that I'm going to go to the gym every single day for an hour, and you get to, day 10, pause and say, okay, what feedback did I get? Don't say, and if you look at it, you say, I only went every other day and I only went for a half hour. Ask yourself why. And then you might say, oh, because I don't have that much free time in my schedule. I have a lot of other obligations. Oh, I had, this going, this going. It's okay to adjust your goal at that point and say, okay, I learned my schedule's too busy. So maybe I'm going to adjust my goal to be a half hour every other day because that's more doable. And you didn't fail. You figured out how to calibrate your goal. So, and then just one other thing, I think I mentioned all of these things many, many times, but I just go back to a book I read. I can't remember what it's called, but it was by a Navy SEAL. And he talked about having your primary goals, your secondary goals, and your third goals. Mm-hmm. And so that 99-year plan, that's your distant goal. You can barely see it. It's very fuzzy. As they say, for that one, just think it's better to shoot for the stars and miss than shoot for the manure and hit it, was the thing I was always told. But your first goal is going to be a great detail. So sometimes knowing, not I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to lose 50 pounds or, that might be your very distant one. But today your first goal is I'm going to put my shoes on, So then two more things, just the importance of, it's much better to meet a small goal than to not meet a big goal, because you build that trust with yourself that you can meet a goal. Now, if you have a long history meeting goals, go ahead and make that big goal and it won't, crush you. But if you've never made a New Year's goal, one of the things that I was thinking about this year is the importance of, one, you can make your goal so that you don't fail by day 14, because they say the average person fails by day 14. So instead of saying, I'm going to do this every day, what I've decided is I'm going to take a goal and I'm going to say, I'm going to spend a minimum of 8 hours this year on this goal. Well, that way I could do it all in one 8-hour chunk, or I could spread it out in 5-minute increments per week, or, I have flexibility as I'm going through. Or another thing you could say is, if you've not been to the gym in a long time, once again, putting the shoes on. I'm going to put my gym shoes on every other day for this year, and I'm going to wear them for a minimum of 15 minutes. You'd be surprised how many times that gets you to the gym. But even if it doesn't, you met your goal. So anyway, just some random thoughts.
Wonderful.
And you covered a lot of really good stuff there. Again, just like I've told this story a number of times about a guy that wanted to get back in shape, and he knew that he had failed a number of attempts before. So this time, he just decided he was just going to drive to the gym. He did that for 5 days. Then on the 6th day, he went in, didn't talk to anybody, walked in, looked around, walked back out and left. And the staff noticed him like on day 4. Well, he walked in, looked around a couple of times, and he had done that like 4 or 5 times. So now they're like, what in this guy's a fruitcake. On the 11th day, he walked in and he asked one of the staff members, could you tell me about this machine? And he got them to explain a couple of the machines. He never sat on them, never did anything. And they're like, what the heck is this guy doing? And finally, after about 15 days, one of the staff guys was showing him this machine. He goes, why are you, what's this all about? We've been noticing you. And he goes, I've tried working out a number of times and it's failed. So I'm getting myself in the habit of just driving to the place. I was able to do that 5 times. I wanted to build the habit of coming into the gym. I did that 5 times. Now I want to know what the machines are. And I've almost got all of the machines figured out. And I think by tomorrow I'll be ready to sign up. In that year, he finished the whole year. Because he didn't start out with the same mistakes that he did before of going, I'm going to join the gym and I'm going to be there the whole year and I'm going to look like Adonis. And not having the habit built in first and not being willing to learn about the machines and learning to like the gym before he even started trying to work out. So if you know yourself well enough, there are ways to, again, just like designing an update for a computer, you don't just go, well, today I'm going to fix all the bugs in the computer. Well, first you have to analyze and find the bug. Then you got to figure out how the bug affects the software. Then you got to figure out what the software does so that when you fix the bug, you don't wipe out the software. We're kind of doing this here as well. But you also, again, want to do a plan out like like Holly brought up, yeah, the 99-year plan sounds extremely daunting, but it gives a direction to head towards. And there can be lots of different ways to get to that 99-year plan destination, but it gives you something to go towards regardless. Mark.
Yeah, a long time ago, I read a book called How to Get Control of Your Time and Your Life. And the author, in the introduction, said that people are afraid of making schedules. Now, I make schedules every day, every week. And my schedule, I call it a mutating algorithm because it's always changing. People are canceling, people are rescheduling. And so it becomes like but the author of this book, How to Get Control of Your Time and Your Life, his premise was that a schedule does not lock you in. People think of a schedule as boundaries, and they're trying and it locks you in. He said, no, you got to stop looking at it that way. A schedule frees you up. Then you find out where you have time to do this and time to do that, so that the whole premise of a schedule, in his mind, I'm sure there are, you can find the book if you look hard enough, How to Get Control of Your Time in Your Life. And he had a couple of good premises. This one was about how a schedule actually frees you up, because then you know where you're required to be places, and what's mutable, what's immutable in your schedule. But it does free you up to see where the where you're available to spend, like Holly said, 5 or 10 minutes on something, read for 10 minutes. Today I was listening to an audio cast for about 15 minutes. I'll get back to it. It's an audio book. And, but my schedule frees me. I can look at my schedule and see where I'm free, where I have options, where I have, where I can, pencil in things, and I just thought that was a great premise. And like I said, it was written a long time ago, but it had a lot of value.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up as well, because one of my squirrels dropped in the idea that one of the main advantages to pre-planning your year or reverse engineering your year is also to make sure that when these little options pop up, you don't fill them in reactionary so quick, because you already have the important stuff in place. Versus if you're constantly running around putting out little fires and living in a reactionary state, you don't have the foresight to attack things with meditated action. Does that make sense? Like the right back to the make sure that you have one thing a month to look forward to. Well, if you don't really already have that in the books, it's real easy to let the month suddenly slip by and go, well, I've got 3 days left. Now what am I going to do? Or the year-defining event, if you don't pre-think that early on, and all of a sudden it's October, that can take a lot of resources and include a lot of stress to try and come up with a year-defining event that includes the holidays. So this is the time to work on things of that nature, whether it's your company, your business, your life is your business. If you've got a family, you are the CEO of that household, and you've got a lot of planning to do there as well. And Renee dropped a question in the comments. And for those of you that are watching live or watching the recording, unfortunately, you don't get to see the comments, so you gotta rely on us to read them for you. And Renee's question was, how do you address the scenario where the best results the person could possibly meet will never hold up to their expectations or their visions? That's a good tough one. What is the person trying to accomplish? You know, what scenario are they putting together? You know, if you're 4'9" and you want to be an NBA All-Star, not saying it couldn't happen, chances are pretty slim though. And I would say, especially in a situation like that, you have to look at, are you setting yourself up for failure? Are you realistically setting yourself up for failure? If so, how do you either curve those expectations so they're scalable? Or, I was just going to say, help, or do you set the goal and then find people to help you chunk down into incremental steps or goals, like Mark just put in the comments? So often when I'm working with clients, they look at, well, I'm going to build me a log cabin out of that forest. But they don't know what the log cabin is supposed to look like, where they're going to build it. They've never swung an axe, ran a chainsaw. They don't even know what kind of wood is in the forest. Well, it's a great thing. Yes, there are people out there who have built log cabins out of the forest. So you may have to study what they've done, and that might be your project for January, before you even start walking into the woods. Instead of saying, I'm just going to walk out in the woods and make it happen. Well, settle down there, Paul Bunyan. Let's see what is realistic. How big were you thinking? Well, I want one like, I saw Yellowstone Lodge. You know, it's only 5 stories high and it's like 7,200 square feet, but that's a log cabin. That's what I was thinking. Yes, that could happen. Maybe the woods has enough lumber. You're probably going to need some help then. But that's another form of chunking down. Do you have the monetary resources? Do you have the ability to find the staffing and all of the above? And once it's up, can you afford the upkeep? AKA, do you have a tribe, or can you find knowledgeable people around you to help you with your goals and the vision and the reverse engineering for the year to help you get there properly? Holly.
So a couple things. First of all, going back to the schedule idea, I just wanted to point out that someone pointed out that if you're having to meet with other people, it has to go one at a time. But for a lot of people, if it's something you're doing just by yourself for a goal, putting it as after I do X, I will do Y. So after I go to the bathroom, I'll brush my teeth, or, before I go to bed, I'll brush my teeth, something like that. Could be a lot easier. And so it's like, instead of, I was going to do this at 6 a.m. on Saturday morning, if you say, I have Saturday off. I'm just going to say after I wake up, I'm going to do this, and 2 hours after I wake up, or whatever. And then kind of to what Renee was asking, I did have a couple thoughts too. I know I've shared this before, but I have kind of a technique that I work with. I call it the overachiever, the underachiever, and the achiever. And basically the idea is we all have voices in our head, and one is like the overachiever that doesn't understand our limitations. It thinks we have infinite time, infinite money, infinite energy, and so it makes all of these really huge goals. And then what happens is it's also very aggressive and mean. So we make all these goals, we don't live up to them, and then we start beating ourselves up, and then the underachiever comes in and says, you know what? You could come be with me and not make any goals at all, and then you'd never fail. And then you listen to that voice, you sit in it for a minute, you don't do anything, and then you start looking around saying, I don't feel good, I'm not accomplishing anything, nothing's ever happening. And then the overachiever comes back in and says, you should make these big goals because you have infinite time and infinite energy. And anyway, so it's a cycle. But the way to get out of that cycle is you have to get into the achiever. And the achiever says, you know what? I do have limitations, but that doesn't mean I have to do nothing. There's no failure. There's only feedback. If I get out there and don't do a perfect job, I'm not going to beat myself up about it. I'm going to congratulate myself for doing anything, and I'm going to see what I can learn from it. What can I get from that? Anyway, so with that, I think you could, if they've got a goal that's really, really big, I think it's their overachiever that's making those goals. And so if you could explain what these 3 roles are, and then have them, do 3 chair therapy or whatever, and put each of the achiever, the overachiever, the underachiever, and the achiever in the chair, and ask them, is this goal realistic? Is there a better goal? I think that letting them come to the conclusion that the goal can't meet their expectation and their vision is always going to be better than telling them that their goal can't meet their expectation and their vision. And it might be hard to get them to that point. Maybe they really have dreamed of being an NBA basketball player their whole lives, and maybe they're only playing in junior high school, and so they're not playing with the best of the best, and they think it is possible. Like there's different levels. But even if it's not that I can't do it, it's that my odds of getting there are really low. Recognize they may have to mourn that loss.
Yes.
It's not just okay, and now that I know it's not achievable, no big deal. No, this might be their whole identity, their whole reason for living. You've got to give them space both to mourn the loss, but then also I would say when you're making the goal, get your achiever in there and say, I'm not going to be making results-based goals. I'm going to be making efforts-based goals. And let's brainstorm what are the 5 ways success could look like. So yes, maybe I become an NBA player, but if not, do I have a ton of fun in high school, just being on the high school team and make a bunch of friends? And then there are some other things too, like maybe you were on track to be, the best player ever in NBA. I know I keep using that as the example, and then you have a car accident and you're paralyzed from the neck down. So, it's one of those kind of a risk analysis of what is the true thing behind it. I know we talked about, chunking down. Why is it important to be an NBA basketball player, and what are the 5 other ways that you could honor that part of yourself and still have it mean something? So I'm not saying it's easy. It's definitely, depending on how much it meant to them, it could be really, really hard. And if they're so tied up into it that they will not let it go, you can't force them to let it go. But if you let them explore it, like I said, and let them realize what the odds are, and let them mourn what is really difficult, and let them define other ways success could exist, I think all of those taken together can make it a little bit easier for them to make alternate goals. And once again, that doesn't mean you have to even give up on it. You just have to say, if it doesn't work out, is it still worth it?
Yep. And I'm glad you brought that up, because it ties right into topic number 2, which I'm going to have to get into, because otherwise we won't even get 2 done. And topic number 2 is tolerance. And I brought this up because what you're going to find out is a lot of what got you here today is choices, but not just choices, it's what you are willing to tolerate. Not only from others, but from yourself. we tolerate a lot of stuff of ourselves. We tolerate a lot of self-talk. Anybody that's been around me for any amount of time has probably been called out for self-talk, negative self-talk. And yet, so many people are willing to tolerate their own negative self-talk because a lot of times they don't even hear it. They'll tolerate other people bashing their dreams or belittling their goals or stuff like that, whether it be from toxic empathy or making up excuses for them, which again is part of toxic empathy. And what are you willing to tolerate in 26? And when you look at what you have tolerated in the past, at what point is enough going to be enough? Those family members that keep trying to hold you back to protect you, even if they don't say it that way, they're so afraid that either you're going to fail and they're trying to protect you from failure, or that you'll succeed. And then what's that mean to them for the stuff that they haven't done? Regardless or irregardless, are you going to continue to tolerate them holding you back? Maybe you've been fine with living at this financial level. You've been tolerating living at this level. Are you going to continue to tolerate that in 26? Mike?
I think this is a fascinating discussion because I believe that not only do you have to decide enough is enough, but I believe you really have to plan what the other side is going to look like, and that you have the energy to be able to do that, and you have the skill set to feel comfortable standing up for yourself, and the arsenal that has been practiced in a small group or whichever to be able to get the bugs out,
Yes.
to be able to feel comfortable being able to do that. Um, for example, um, we are acquiring a truck and camper. Um, and we're in North Dakota. I mean, we are possibly going to go to Oregon to get over the Rockies. And we have not really camped before in this camper or in a camper. So I think it's a good idea to take like 3 days, pack it, and stay in Bismarck and just say that we are here so we can actually find out what's going to work, what's not going to work,
Yes.
and how to adjust that and to feel comfortable with that. So I think being able to not only pack your toolbox with comfortable skills that you have practiced in safe environments, um, but also practiced in hostile environments through
Yes.
play
Yes.
and mhm.
Mm-hmm.
So and then beyond that, I think it's the the timeline of what that commitment looks like. So it's not just a week and then that's enough. Go back. Um, I think that being able to change the actions. One of the things I'm studying is how A lot of the actions that you do, anxiety and all that other stuff, or that you experience are electrical.
Mhm.
And with those electrical experiences, um, it turns into chemical. That's when the hormones, the cortisol, the dopamine are controlled. And those are the long-term effects of the short electrical sparks. And in my mind, if you're going to change a habit, it is creating the good sparks, the good electrical connections, the good habits to let the old hormones, cortisol, all that other stuff wash out of your body to replace that so that it becomes more natural and in flow. What are your thoughts?
Well, and I'm so glad you brought that up because it points out that tolerance is not only readjusting your values and criteria foundation. That's a huge part of it because you have to look at your values and criteria and go, I used to, at this present point, my values and criteria foundation has a crack in it, the tolerance. It has a crack right through these areas and it allows things to seep in that I don't like. But it's going to take effort, possibly money, possibly uh, conflict, possibly losing some friends. Am I willing to expend in all of those departments to fix this leak in my values and criteria foundation? And sometimes people don't even know that the crack is there. But once you know it, you know it. It's hard not to see that leak. Other people have seen it and they put up for it with it for years. And they're just like, yeah, but what can I do? I mean, it's a big crack. They're really hard to fix. And oh my gosh, if I do this, I got to stand up to my family or I got to tell my best buddy to stop doing that. And then they're going to make fun of me and then they're going to not want to talk to me. But what's on the other side of what is life going to be like once that crack is fixed? And you don't have to expend all the energy scooping out all of the schmutz that has been seeping through that crack, all of that toxic waste that seeps through that crack. What is it going to be like when you no longer have to deal with all of that stuff?
And I think um, being able to keep the end goal strongly in focus
Yeah.
and I mean that where's the pull or the push to remind you of where you're going and for what reasons.
And for those of you that have been around Planet David, Dr. David, one of his things is the bullseye. Know your outcome. When you know your outcome and you are dedicated to that outcome, it's much easier, A, to see the crack, and B, to go, I won't tolerate that anymore. That was back then. For those of you that were having fun squeezing shice through the crack, sorry, no mas. And yes, it may cause some conflict, external, but compared to the internal conflict that you've been dealing with the entire time that that shice has been pushed through the crack, how much is it going to be worth to you again, when you don't have to A, see the crack anymore, B, deal with the stuff that's coming through it, and C, have other places that you can focus your energy on now. What will you be able to accomplish once you stop tolerating those things that are taking away from your energy, holding you back, making you feel whatever, belittled or not worthy enough or not smart enough or all of that stuff? If that is coming through that crack, what is it worth to seal that crack and not tolerate that type of activity anymore?
For me, it feels like helping an individual with an addiction.
Same thing.
The
Yes.
same patterns, and trying to stay away from negative patterns and keeping the bullseye on the wall.
Yeah.
My thoughts.
And finding out a lot of times it can help, just like with my client today, they had a crack in their foundation and it wasn't big, but it bothered them because they knew it was there and they had done an evaluation on what that crack was costing them. And finally they decided, I don't want it there anymore. And we did a protocol, and it turned out it wasn't anybody around them. It was their 8-year-old version of themselves wanting to stay in contact with grandpa. And as soon as they realized that, they realized that the 8-year-old had the ability to seal the crack. All right, Michael. Happy New Year, brother. Appreciate you showing up.
Happy New Year, everybody. Talk to y'all later.
Tell the in-laws I said happy anniversary to them.
I will do it. 52nd, 52 years. Amazing.
Right? Especially in this day and age. Woo-hoo.
Exactly. Little steps, man. It's a little wins. Keep up.
Yep.
Keep it up. Hi, guys.
All right. See ya. And that takes us right to the top of the hour. A little bit past. So that was my last topic coverage for 25. Now it's time for the beginning of the last second hour of Triple T for 25. So who's going to start off the last second hour with a question or a topic? Come on, guys. You've been here enough. Who's got a question? Mark, thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
I was watching something today, and a fellow, a very intelligent fellow, he said, people are not going to be coherent absent of a sense of purpose. I thought that was a very interesting statement on their part, because if people don't have a sense of purpose, how can they be focused? How can they be coherent? How can they be happy? So I'll throw that one out there for the group. So the people that are not, if they don't have a sense of purpose, how can they be coherent? How can they be fulfilled? How can they be happy?
Great topic. Who's got some input on that? Some thoughts, Fishlings? Holly.
Can you hear me now?
There you are, yes.
Okay. I gotta love unmuting. I absolutely love this topic. So Viktor Frankl says it in a slightly different way. He created a system called logotherapy, but he basically says you could basically endure anything as long as you have a meaning, and you could push through anything as long as you have a meaning. And for people who think, oh, it's got to be this big, huge life calling that's, life changing, it doesn't have to be huge. You can have different meanings for different positions in life. I've probably shared this a million times, but one of the, did you say something, Mark?
No, sorry.
Oh, okay. No
Just
worries.
coughing.
So one of the examples that he gave is he had a patient who was an older man who had lost his wife, and he just couldn't get over the fact that he was having to live without her. And he asked him, what would have happened if you had died first? How would she have felt? And he says, oh, it would have been so hard for her. She would have, it would have been really difficult for her to have to mourn my passing and take care of everything. And, Dr. Frankel told him, well, you living without her is the thing that spared her from having to go through that pain. And suddenly, everything was different for him approaching that situation. So I think, life, you may not always need a meaning to have fun with life if you're in a place where, you're being indulged and other people are cleaning up your messes and all that sort of thing. But you're not having a good life in that scenario. But if you're in a place where you actually have to endure responsibility and you have to, actually deal with things and grow, I think that path is really, really hard to walk if you don't have a meaning. But the great thing is there is a meaning to be found in just about everything if you're looking for it.
Great answer, Holly. Who else has something before I chime in? Yes? No? Anybody? Kind of quiet out in the woods. Who's got squirrels?
I came in on like half the question, so I was going to wait for you to go so I could make sure I had my ducks in a row.
Are your ducks swimming?
My ducks are everywhere. I'm not sure how many I have. I don't even know if they're molting. I don't know if they're flying, they're walking, they're quacking, or if they're sinking underwater. We have some pickles today.
Well, anybody else got anything to add real quick? Or one of the things that you're gonna, that I saw this, my mother was in the assisted living industry for a good majority of my life. And the people that you could tell had a lot of purpose in their life and then hit retirement age and suddenly found they had forgotten to make sure that they had a purpose after their job, aged dramatically fast. And there were a number of people that even, they worked so hard for so long, and if they were forced into retirement, oftentimes did not last very long. The importance of purpose, especially for the human experience, is huge. That's why you'll see like why is so and so a door greeter at Walmart? I mean, don't they have enough money? It's not about the money, sunshine. It's about having something to wake up for, something to do, a purpose. Just like with a lot of people that do go into retirement like that, will suddenly get a pet because they got to have something to take care of, something to live for. Does that make sense? Any, Lenore?
I like the idea of purpose, and it really depends to me on your school of thought that people go to. If you listen to Bashar, he will tell you that life inherently is meaningless, and you are the one that makes the meaning. And I really liked what Holly had shared about purpose and meaning in Viktor Frankl, and whether you want to call it purpose or you want to say, what's the meaning of this? You're constantly coming up with conclusions. You're constantly coming up with, what does this mean to me? And there was, I came across an Instagram post, and it said, it's all an invitation. How do you want to look at it? If it's all a buffet, if you are able to look and experience and focus on anything, what do you want it to look like? Now, whether it's somebody going into retirement or somebody going into the new year, what do you want it to mean about you? And spending time with that. And I think the most difficult piece of it isn't deciding and saying, like, that's what I want it to look like, or concluding that. It's coming to that conclusion and then sitting with, what does this mean about me? Because it could mean many wonderful things. And then you're going to start to have like all these voices come up, all these doubts come up, like, well, what about this? What about that? What about that? If you're anything like my brain, and there's constant chatter. So we can kind of spin in this way that we've made the meaning. But when we can write it down, or when we can talk about it, whether we talk about it here or we talk about it with, a coach or a therapist, whatever you'd like, and you sit in the discomfort of the what ifs and how does this mean? What does this mean to me? What is my purpose? Do I like this purpose? Am I inspired by it? Am I moving with it? And you sit in that. I think there's a very beautiful unfolding that can happen. Sometimes the unfolding is a little scary and you might cry a little bit, like me. Other times it can be very inspiring, and it can lead you to the next piece and the next piece and the next piece. And what do you want it to mean about you? We can look at anything on this place, phenomenal realm of time and space, whatever you want to call it. We could look at anything. What's the conclusion? What do you want it to mean? What do you want it to move through you or not? So that's kind of where I feel about it. And especially when it comes to your purpose, is it moving you? Do you feel like there is such a thing as a purpose? And if so, great. Let it move with you and through you, and let yourself be surrounded by people who will help you move the needle on that, who will help you take the next step and the next step and the next step.
100%. Holly.
Have a few more thoughts. Loving that too, Lenore. Thank you for sharing that. A couple other thoughts. So, Viktor Frankl's one, but Simon Sinek talks a lot about this. He calls it finding your why. And if you want to try to find your why, the best question, I think this is also an NLP as well, but the first place I ever heard it was Simon Sinek, so I go there, is you ask yourself, okay, what's something that's important to you? And then you drill down, and why is that important? What's important about that? What's important about that? Until you get all the way down to something that is a feeling. Basically, you can't go any deeper. You just start getting synonyms. So you could say, oh, it's important to me to play the piano. What's important about that? Oh, I love that feeling of mastery. Okay, what's important about the feeling of mastery? It means I worked hard. Like you're just digging yourself down until you get the value that's at the bottom of it, criterion values. This is this is like your ultimate value that guides your life if you find your why. But I also am thinking about Matthew Hussey talks a little bit about this. And if you want the full thing, you'll have to go to Matthew Hussey, but this is just kind of a highlight. So I'll put it in accounting terms because that's how it speaks to me. In accounting, when we were taking finance classes and talking about investing, they talk about the importance of diversification. And if you don't know what that means, it means don't put all your money, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Don't put all your money in just one investment. Make sure that if, Your retirement, you've got maybe a little bit in stocks, a little bit in bonds. You've got different stocks at different countries. That's why you have things like mutual, or different companies. That's why you have mutual funds, so that you aren't just invested in one. So if one stock tanks, you don't lose everything.
Right.
And he was talking about doing the same thing with your purpose. Don't have just one purpose that guides your entire life. We were kind of talking about earlier the NBA player who that's all they care about, that's their purpose, and then they get paralyzed from the neck down. Now what? Is there any area of your life that if you lost it, you wouldn't know, your identity would be shattered because you've invested and he was talking about too, it's not even just only one, but if too much of you is invested. So 90% of me comes from this one area. If you lose that area, it's going to be a lot harder to recover. So, I'm a daughter, I'm a wife, I'm a mother, as a woman, those could be roles you play in addition to, I've got my job, or, in my case, I play the piano, or maybe I've got my D&D group, or maybe I'm a good cook. All of these things are areas where you derive satisfaction. And if you lose one, you still have all those others to fill it.
And I'm so glad you brought that up, because it ties right into the quote of Jack of all trades, which it cracks me up. The amount of people that I run into, and I ask this question all the time now. I ask them if they know the quote Jack of all trades, and like, oh yeah, Jack of all trades. And I'm like, but what else? How does it go? And they're like, Jack of all trades? Like, so that would, and I'll say, well, Jack of all trades, master of none. Yes, Jack of all trades, master of none. I said, but what's the full quote? They have no idea what the full quote is. And the full quote is, a Jack of all trades, but a master of none will always be better than a master of one. And you can, right in alignment with what Holly said, if you have many different purposes in life, you will always be better than the person that has one amazing purpose. That's it, the one purpose. And like you said, Holly, if for some reason that purpose is taken away or disappears, and you don't know how to swivel, you don't know how to plot, twist, left turn, you're going to fall on your face. And sometimes that fall can be pretty far and pretty hard on the landing. Mark?
I've always felt that a good marriage is finding a shared purpose, whatever that is. I think, like I said, even societies, back during World War II, my mom told me, and I wasn't even around, but she said that everybody had the same purpose. They were going to defeat the Nazis, defeat the Axis powers. They were going to, save the world. Everybody seemed to buy into that shared purpose. And she said people just seemed happier back then because they had that shared purpose.
Yes.
And again, I think that's sometimes, like I said, having a shared purpose, I think, makes it easier to bear the burden. The other person can pick up the slack or whatever. But even societies can do that. We emerged from World War II, the best and the strongest nation on the planet, and we've been kind of on coast since then. But we had that shared purpose as a people. And but I also think, like I said, marriage is a shared purpose.
Mm-hmm. And on the coattails of that, if the kids became part of the big purpose, how many of you have seen one or more of the parents lose it when the last kid moves out? Empty nest syndrome. Oh, my purpose is gone. Or even worse, if tragedy strikes and the kids tragically die, and they fixate on that purpose that was taken away without having something else to focus on for a purpose. And so again, being able to pre-plan the year ahead. How much purpose can you fill into a day planner for the year to have something to look forward to have purpose for? I see multiple different ways to ensure that you have a life full of purpose. Anybody else got any ahas, epiphanies to add to this? Yes, no, maybe so. Mike does.
I think, in my mind, building your community. A lot of our conversation has been just within yourself, within, your own world. But your world expands with community and the experiences that they have that they can share with you. It broadens your experiences and thought supply, I guess, or knowledge supply. What are your thoughts?
Mm-hmm. No, I'm glad you shared that. Renee?
Sorry about that. Technical
That's okay.
difficulties. This is to play off of what you said, TJ, because I'm seeing this with one of my parents. It's like they retired and then nothing. It's like they had nothing left, and all they do is watch TV, and to the point where he can no longer walk. My question for you is how do you find something for that individual to give them purpose? Because I've asked a million times, what would you like to do? Things you'd like to, and it's nothing. It seems perfectly happy, just deteriorating in a bed and watching the Hallmark Channel. And I'm just curious if this is just more of a me issue, remembering them how they are, or if there's something I can do to help make the last days better for them.
Ooh. Who's got some answers for Renee before I jump in? Lenora.
For me, especially because I've been in similar situations and not quite when it comes to a parent, but encouraging them to do certain things. And I've had to come to the conclusion that the things that I want for them aren't necessarily the things that they want for themselves.
Yep.
And oftentimes, and I could just be making up the meaning for this of myself, and I would think they don't want to share that with me because it doesn't feel safe, comfortable, appropriate, parent, child, whatever it might be, or family related. They don't want to share certain things with me, and they don't have to. I can show up and offer as much as I want. And if somebody continues to say thanks, but still put it on the ground, or say like, I'm good, I'm really good, we can only do so much. And there is such a thing that I do believe that, especially people in this group, especially people that that we all have a very special gift. And that gift is we can see people at their highest. we can see that version of themselves where they're succeeding, or we can see that version of themselves where they're feeling good, or we can see whatever it is that we know lives within them. And we can't do it for them, even though as much as we want to. And it's up to us to say, I can see this version, and as much as I want this for you, I can't force you to have it. So it really is, for me at least, dealing with the emotional piece of being able to see that version and not experience it completely. And it's I don't want to say the death of a dream, because it's not that. It's almost like a loss of an experience, or a loss of something that you
That's it.
can't go completely with. And it's that beautiful gift that we have. And this is also the other side of that gift, is that we have to see this and experience that other piece that people won't do.
Extremely well said.
Thank you.
Who else has got something before I? Holly.
I'll jump in here. First of all, I just want to second everything Lenora just said. Spot on. One of the things I am learning as I get older too is, so on the one hand, if somebody doesn't want to change, you can't force them to change, you can't make them change, you can't make them want to change. However, another thing I'm learning is that when somebody's completely overwhelmed and they've been taught it's not okay to ask for help, sometimes they are dying for you to reach out to them. And so learning and I haven't figured this out, people could tell me how to do this, but learning the art of telling somebody that you're available to talk to while not shaming them and not forcing them. So that invite sometimes might mean more than you realize, even if it's just, so, once again, I don't know the best way to say it, but if I had to come up with it off the top of my head, it might be, one time when you're over there, just say something like, hey, Dad, just so you know, I've noticed, that you seem kind of on the sad side, and, I'm not here to judge you or anything, but I just wanted to know, are you okay? Is there anything I can do for you? And you could even say too, and also I know, because I'm thinking of what Lillian Bridges would say, of we're not called to serve our family and our friends, because they know us too well in different ways. The last thing you need is the person you change their diapers to be the person who's going to come give you this life-changing change. But you could even say something like, if you want it, I'm happy to, pay for you to go see a therapist or see one of my colleagues, or, something like that. So they don't feel like they have to open up to you specifically. So once again, you have to know the person and know what they're going to take as confrontational, what they're going to take as trying to control them, and what they're going to take as just a gentle, loving invitation of maybe they just don't want to burden you and they're so overwhelmed they don't know how to reach out for help. So just letting them know the door is open, but at the same time accepting that if they don't want that, it's completely their right to say no.
Yep.
Thank you.
Lenora.
There's somebody on the channel that had messaged me about this topic, so I'm not going to say who it is, but they offered that elderly folks just want contentment. It's part of the aging process. Don't overthink it because they're elderly. Don't overthink it because the elders aren't. It's just the way that they are. So that too is also entirely possible.
Yep. One of the things I was going to add in is, if you know how to elicit values and criteria, you can find out where their values and criteria changed or shifted. What's important to you about no longer going out? what's important to you about making sure that you stay in bed to watch TV all day? At what point did your values of being part of society shift? And what Lenora brought up, understanding that you may end up having to mourn the loss of that part of a parent. And watching them shift their values and criteria into something that isn't in alignment with your values and criteria. A lot of times what I think bothers us the most is the conflict in values and criteria. And I guess it's kind of a spotlighting, or, if I certainly wouldn't do that if I was you. The challenge is you're not them. You don't know what's going through their head, or what condition their body's in, or their mind is in, or, I've watched people who were extremely active and very conversational succumb to dementia or things of that nature, and basically close down into a little prison inside of their life. And the problem is we can't see from the inside of them what they're experiencing. But also, as agents of change, if anybody is out there that can help them reframe the thought processes they may have put themselves into, I would like to think that it's us. Maybe in their mind they've watched some of their friends who have had health issues, and through experiential viewing, they're like, oh, well, I watched them go through this, and Ethel fell over the other day on the ice and she cracked a hip, so I better not go outside anymore because, if I slipped on the ice and I cracked my hip, that would be terrible. Yeah, but Ethel's 20 years older than you are. Well, it could happen, You're right. And you could also age 20 years faster than Ethel through thought and be right there with her. Or you could realize you're not 90 and you weren't a chain smoker and you're not 50 pounds overweight. So in essence, you're not even Ethel physically. So don't become Ethel mentally. Oh. Lenora.
I liked what you were saying, so I think that was also really interesting. I like the idea of seeing people around us as teachers, and they could be either teaching us ways that we want to be or teaching us ways that we don't want to be. And if this person in your life is showing you that this is a potential way that you can experience life, that's helpful for you or for us, depending on whoever you're talking about. It's helpful to see that. So whether this person is not taking care of themselves, or if this person happens to be really narcissistic, or if this person happens to be so driven that they are going 30 hours a day and they're hocked up on caffeine, and you're just looking at them like, oh my gosh, you can look at them and see it as a way that you want to be or you don't want to be. And even looking at that, and you can simply say, thank you for showing me that this is a possibility. And I want to do this. I want to take care of myself. And sometimes, just as we have our ideas of how people are aging. For example, I had this idea, when somebody retired, they sit there on a rocking chair and that was that. They waited till they faded into the dust. And there are certain people in my life who I look at and I'm thinking, we just went through COVID. Thankfully, we survived. What the hell are you still doing here, and why are you not enjoying retirement? That being said, it's only because of how I experienced COVID. I don't know what's going through their head. I don't know what's going through their heart. I don't know what else. Maybe they're exactly where they want to be. And then if that's the case, great. And even if you hear things like, oh, that would be nice, and you're thinking, you could still go out and do that. Like, this isn't a problem. Just like I have my own cluster magical going on in here. They do too. We all have stuff. And even though we might want to see this version of them, it's okay. And we can see them as a teacher, and we can find ways to take those lessons and say, I'm going to remember this, because when I get to this point in my life, or when I go through that experience, or if I go through that experience, I want to experience it differently. Those are my thoughts.
Absolutely. Holly.
So this would not work for everybody. I think, the theme of honor what somebody wants to do is very clear here. But two things that kind of came up for me too is the fastest way someone shuts down is if they lose either human connection or the ability to feel useful. And so if you could find either, human beings for them to interact with on a more regular basis, or you can find some form of service that they could do, something that makes them useful. That could give you, because I'm thinking of I'm sure all of you have heard of the rat village experiment, where they were testing addiction levels. And the rats that were isolated, they just were taking, I think, was it cocaine or heroin? I can't remember which, but they were getting really, really high all the time. And researchers thought that meant certain things about addiction, but then somebody else repeated the experiment, and instead of having them isolated, created this really fancy rat village where they were able to be social with each other. And almost none of the rats wanted to take that dopamine hit. And television gives you very fast dopamine, which if you're addicted to if you're addicted to watching television, that often suggests you're not getting healthy dopamine in other areas. So just, something you could do is say, hey, Dad, I want to do this project where I'm writing the family history. Is there any chance you'd be willing to help me with that and tell me just stories about you, about Mom, about your parents, about her parents, like that sort of thing? That alone could be a form of service, rather than going into them of how can I be of service to you? Sometimes finding a way they could be of service to you is going to be even more helpful. But once again, they may not go for it. They may be too shut down to even want it. Or, saying, hey, I was considering for Christmas getting you a membership to this community club or something like that. How would you feel about that? If and I'm also going to hire an Uber driver to come by and pick you up and take you there or something like that. Obviously it's going to depend on the person, what's going to speak to them the most. But if you could find a way to let them be of value and of service, and a way to help them connect to others more frequently, that might give the dopamine, make it healthier so they don't need the television as much.
Yep. 100%. Mark.
Yeah, I don't know how this fits in, but Squirrel whispered it in my ear. I remember a story about an old man, and he went to the doctor, and the doctor said, well, you've got 6 months to live. So, so he took that information he went home and he built himself a coffin. And every day he'd just sit by the coffin waiting to die. And 20 years went by, and the doctor who told me I had 6 months to live was long in the grave. And here he was getting up every day, sitting beside his coffin, just waiting to die.
Mhm. Yep. Which is part of why the near-death experience protocol works so well to help change people. Ken Guso brought it up at one of the, I think it was 4 years ago in Hypnothoughts or something like that. But that's one of the major life changers is near-death experience versus the ones that are like, oh, my life is over, so I'm just going to sit here and just wait for the angel to show up. Lenora, you had your hand up?
Slightly deviating off topic.
Squirrel.
Sometimes they can be near-death experiences. Sometimes they can be surgeries, but sometimes even big things like that don't necessarily change people. And I really like the idea that change is good and that you can change at the drop of a hat. Like you can see a reel and suddenly have a quote that hits you differently, or you can come on Triple T and hear something that just really resonates with you and it sticks with you. I mean, you guys can't see, but behind my computer, there's this massive bulletin board, and there are things that you all have said that I've written down. Sometimes you guys message them privately. Sometimes they're, little tidbits, and I have things from like Elijah and Holly and, ones that go back to, I think Fran said something on November 19th, 2024. Mike said something on October 22nd, 2024. So like change can happen. It really just how it hits you, how it resonates through you. Yes, it might be a near-death experience, but it might also just be a fantastic Tuesday hanging out with you fine people. That can make all the difference. And if that shapes you and you get to pass that forward, that's a beautiful thing. And if it shapes just you and doesn't go anywhere, it's still just as beautiful.
Would that be a near life experience?
It might be.
Yeah.
And that ties in with the yes, we're 2 days away from everybody's big yearly changeover. But why does it have to be January 1st? Why can't it be June, a Tuesday? Why can't it be November on a Wednesday? Lenora.
I think it could be, but that also being said, I think there is something ceremonious about doing it in a new year, especially like in this case, we've definitely been conditioned like new year, new you, to do that. But I think also the fact that there is something pivotal that really stands out. There's certain days where, it's funny, it's hysterical. I just thought about it. My husband and I, back in like 2012, we went to Disney, and the entire day, all I kept saying was like, best Wednesday ever. And I said it so many times that now on certain Wednesdays, when we think about it, it just kind of lights up, and you can have that as being a ceremonious thing, something memorable, whether it's like a formal ceremony or it's just something memorable where you anchor to it, and it can be changed right then and there. So whether you do it today or you do it tomorrow or you do it January 1st, just do it. And what did you say? New life experience, new year, and new quarter of the century. Mark had said a near life experience. And then
Yeah.
if you wake up and you think like, oh my God, I'm alive. Like, holy shit. Ever think about that? The
Oh, yeah.
percentages. I love those reels where they talk about the
Yeah.
percentages of you being here. And then I love
Right.
even more the percentages of the likelihood that you all planned to be here at this exact time. Like, how many Tuesdays have we all collectively joined in on this conversation? I think it's phenomenal. Sometimes we just take it for granted, though. I'll
Yeah.
stop rambling now.
No, I like that rambling because, yes, every Tuesday that I get to feel the pressure of coming up with these, thinking that I would only be able to do that 3 times. And so I put it off for 3 years. We could have already been doing this 3 years longer if I would have just done it. But who knows who would have shown up 3 years earlier.
Yep.
Well, Holly,
If we're ready for another question,
I was just going
kind
to
of a
say
follow.
that one took us 3/4 of the way through the second hour. So who's got a new one?
I think it's kind of a repetition, but interestingly, this is the question I intended to ask today before the last two questions. So it just happens to match the last two. But so my question is, if you had a client come into your office or, on Zoom or whatever it may be, and said, I am struggling to connect with my why, with my reason for living. Nothing lights me up anymore. Life is just, two-dimensional, that sort of thing. And they wanted you to help them connect to their why, find their reason for living, find the thing that brings their Chen inside their body, whatever way you want to phrase it. How would you approach that session? What techniques would you use? What things would you say? What metaphors would you use? Or whatever else comes to your mind.
Psilocybin.
What did he say?
Right out of the gate. Psilocybin.
Magic mushrooms. You want to change your way of thinking and get some clarity. That's a good door to walk through. Anyway, that's my very unprofessional opinion.
In a medical setting, of course.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Yes. Who else has an answer for Miss Holly? Lenora.
It's interesting that you spun it this way, Holly, only because of the conversations that I have been having with other people in my life. And I think the most important thing that you said was, if somebody comes to you and they say, I want help, can you help me? And then you go, well, what techniques are you open to? And you can even, like, if anybody's going through this themselves, and even in my head, you could do 3-chair protocol, like brain, heart, and gut. But I also think you can do younger self, higher self, current self, and have a 3-way conversation. Because the most important piece is when you go, okay, well, tell me a little bit about that. And they come to those roadblocks of, well, what do you want? I don't know. Or I want this, but that's not possible. And they're already dropping the not boundaries. They're already showing you their what?
Limitations.
Limitations, or their thought process of, like, here's a hard line, like, and it's almost like bumper cars. Like, I keep trying to get out of the place to drive my car, but I just keep hitting a wall. And it comes to a level of helping somebody find those incremental things. And as they find those incremental things, not letting them dismiss them. People are so quick to dismiss progress. And if you, I've been the first one to say it. I used to think progress was going to be like this magical portal that I was going to walk through, and then there would be change. And that's not it. The most powerful progresses or the most powerful shifts have been like those deeper thoughts where you're just like, whether I'm being coached by somebody or walk through a process or just dropping into a different thought and having that shift and shifting that energy in my own body, those have been the most powerful for me. And when you don't see that, when you can't see that occurring in your body, or your client can't see that occurring, it's constantly having to bring them back and say, no, this is what you're looking at. You're not, stop talking yourself out of it because you're limiting yourself in that. Your brain is going, no, that's not happening. And it's, no, that really is happening. We're so quick to be in this back and forth ping pong. And that, I think, is where the massive limitation comes from, hugely. Is we can talk ourselves out of it, or our clients can talk themselves out of it very, very quickly. And unless you really get in it, you can easily talk yourself out of it.
Great answer. Who's got another answer?
I think people, because of their, so socially conditioned that they don't trust themselves, they don't know themselves, they are full of fear, have a hard time stepping out of their box of their mind, their conditioned ideas. It's like they're trying to get a solution doing the same thing, over and over again. And, one word that pops up for me is courage. It takes an enormous amount of courage to go inside and look at yourself and then move forward without judging yourself. I mean, I think courage is like number one. You got to have really a big set of, what's the Mexican word? Coyones?
Ponies?
Yeah, yeah. You got to be willing to face all this stuff that the alter ego, right? The mind-made self. Because there's so much falseness there. There's so much bad information, bad programming. And to look at that societally, like it's so hard because a lot of people they're unhappy because all this stuff keeps going over and over and over in their minds. And you ask them to look at themselves and they're like, I look at myself all the time. And I that's why I have all these distractions because I can't do it. It's unpleasant. So you're asking them to do it some more, right? Look deeper and then be willing to change. Man, that is not for the faint of heart. Not a bit. So, I talk to people a lot, but I don't do it professionally. I just kind of wing it as people talk to me, and I have a good sense of energy and I ask a lot of questions. But as a professional, it must be really challenging to figure out how to like know your client and know what works for them. I mean, you have a toolbox full of stuff, right? And as somebody speaks to you, you like get ideas like, but what tools do you need? Do they need? And in what order do you give them these tools? And at what speed do you give them these tools, So, I mean, what you guys do is like, kudos to you, very challenging as far as I can see. Nearly impossible, I think, a lot of it. So it must be great when you see breakthroughs in people like, oh my God, this actually helped,
There are days.
Yes, I know that song.
Mark.
Yeah, when somebody comes into my office, Holly, like I said, the first thing I usually do is see them better than they are. Again, what, and more focused, just at I imagine what this person would be like. And, again, sometimes the techniques, again, first sorting the human mind is good, bad. And if everything in their life they're codifying is bad, they gotta, you gotta get in there and you gotta change that. But the tools, you know, find out what they're willing to, how much they're willing to talk about themselves, how much they're willing to, share so that you can kind of get into their reality. And, I think that, and then the tools will come up, whether they be, like I said, some hypnotherapy with some timeline, like Tad James, or, again, catharsis, cathartic letter. I mean, there's a million different techniques. And I think the more time you spend with a person, you kind of get a flavor for what will work and what won't work, And, some people, have you ever had a diary, a journal, again, introduce the concept if they've never, if they're not that type of person, okay, well, again, it's usually, again, it's not always hit and miss. It's usually you just spend enough time with them and, in whatever, like I said, in whatever pops up, ask them if this would be something they'd be willing to try, like the 3-chair technique or the empty chair. What would, like I said, it because we have all these tools, and I think that um, you know, um, and sometimes just listening to them, just having someone who is willing to listen to them and not judge them might be the most therapeutic thing you can do for them. You know, yeah, the more they talk, the more you get a flavor and the metadata for what their, what their, oh God, I just had it. Hang on, squirrel ran away. What their style is, or again, what their, and the more time you spend with them, like I said, the better you can, uh, and the more they talk, the more you can dovetail, and and the techniques will, come to you, and then then you explore whether or not they feel comfortable with that. And I think that's, like I said, if they've lost the joie de vivre, okay, well, when did you lose it? How do you, you weren't this way as a kid, like I said, babies are very happy, you know, very, and, but, you can connect them to good memories and, happy memories and stuff. And, and, usually the roots of someone's passion are buried in their childhood somewhere, and maybe they've forgotten about them, and that's what that second magic question is about passion, you know, and but that's kind of what I would do. First I would imagine them as better than they were. The hardest thing they had to do was climb the stairs to my office. I said everything else from here point forward is easy. All you got to do is, you know, uh, be willing to be here, be willing to invest the time and the effort, like Lenora said, and just, again, you want to get better. And but the individual techniques, I don't know what's gonna come out of my mouth sometimes. Okay. And sometimes I'm amazed what comes out of my mouth. There's that step back, like, wow, that was fucking brilliant. Where did that come from? um,
Many,
um,
many times.
Mm-hmm.
so
Yes.
yeah, I would do.
I hope you
I
wrote
would,
that down. I don't
I
know what
would
I
be.
just said.
I
What was
would,
that,
like I
Greg?
said, but I don't know again. But I think the more you get to know somebody, get to know the flavor of their reality, I think again, I think you become better at being able to help them and to help them. It's not your agenda; it's theirs. You know, I mean, you can be a technician or you can be an artist. And the more artistic you are, like I said, you just what did um, Michelangelo say? The statue's already in there. All I got to do is carve off the, effluvium, right? The unimportant stuff, getting people back to their core, back to their, their what they were, passionate about as children. Again, but it's all about helping them.
Yep, exactly. Greg, you said something?
Oh yeah, you're talking about you say something that like in the moment or shortly after that you just channeled something and it wasn't from you necessarily. You you just channeled the information that was needed. And I said, I tell people, I hope you wrote that down, because don't ask me again what I said. I have no idea. And if I tried to repeat it, it wouldn't come out the same way. But TJ, you and I have had a similar conversation. Like, I liken it to, like, I have so many decades of experience with cars and electronics and mechanical things. Like, people can say something, and before they're finished, I know exactly what to suggest, or the
Yeah.
process of, A, B, C, try this and this, this and then that. You know what I mean? You try different things. I know immediately. There's no hesitation. It's just in me.
Yes.
And the work I've done with TJ, that's what you do. Exactly. It's like, I can say anything, or listen to you talk to people, and something comes up, and instantly, because of your experience and your knowledge and your training and a little bit of wisdom, hopefully, somebody says something, and you develop this energetic, right? Is it not? It's an energetic thing. It's all energy, right? So when somebody's talking about, they're speaking your
Mhm.
language, and like, you get it, you feel their energy, you like know right away what to offer and what to suggest for that particular person, because everybody's different. Everybody has a different energy too, right?
Yeah. And there have been plenty of times where something just came out of my mouth, and as it's flowing out of my mouth, I'm going,
Yeah.
what? And it's too late to take it back, but
Hmm.
it hits them, and they're like, oh, that's just what I needed to hear.
That's just what I needed to hear.
And it's happened to me enough now that I don't even have that reactionary anymore. It's like,
Right. You,
okay,
you've developed a trust.
yep.
Yep.
So, wow, what a great collection of topics to finish off the last triple T of 2025. It just feels weird to say, but it
Yep.
really does. Like, wow. So I am so glad you guys were here for this one. Um, I also get to say that I won't see you on Triple T till next year,
Hmm.
which really feels weird to say.
Yep.
And I also get to say this for the last time of the year. Love you, Mom.
Nora's
So
gone to sleep now.
thank you guys so much for another year.
Yeah.
It just
Lot,
blows me away. So
lot to celebrate.
yeah, definitely a lot to celebrate. We've got all the recordings on my YouTube channel, which I went through it the other day just looking at some of the stuff, and the idea that in a few minutes, number 209 will be complete and posted on YouTube.
Hmm.
209.
Hey.
Yeah.
Hats
Miracle.
off.
Yeah. And so thank you guys for your amazing gift of your time. I'll always say I don't know how to recreate it. You'll be the second to know. But
Hmm.
until then, you could have been anywhere else. You could have been doing anything else. There've been a number of people on and off of this platform, but you guys are here today, and I really appreciate that. So thank you. Love you all. Uh, and thank you, Guillermo. Says thanks to all of you to share your wisdom and make us think better as human beings. And thanks for bringing us together. You're very welcome, Guillermo. I appreciate you showing up. So thanks, guys. See
All right.
you. See you next year.
Yes,
Thank you,
sir.
everyone. Happy New Year.
Happy
Thank you,
New Year.
TJ.
Happiest New
New
Year.
Year.
Cheers.
Happiest New Year from the heart.